Imagine holding the most powerful title in the world and then being remembered by one final sentence. 8 United States presidents died in office. 4 were assassinated. 1 lasted only 31 days. And 2 founding fathers died on the exact same day, 50 years after American independence. This is how America's presidents met the end. Failed medicine, contaminated water, gunshots, illness, and final words that were sometimes heroic, sometimes heartbreaking, and sometimes completely ordinary. Start with the first president and a medical disaster. George Washington developed a severe throat infection and could barely breathe. His doctors treated him by bleeding him repeatedly. It was the best medicine they knew, and very likely the worst thing they could have done. Washington stayed composed. His secretary recorded his last words. He said, "'Tis well." Then comes the wildest coincidence in presidential history. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were friends, bitter political rivals, and friends again. On July 4th, 1826, exactly 50 years after the Declaration of Independence, they both died. Jefferson went first. Adams, hundreds of miles away and unaware, reportedly whispered, "Thomas Jefferson survives." He was wrong by only a few hours. Their friend James Madison almost completed the pattern, dying 6 days before July 4th. Then James Monroe did die on July 4th, 1831. 3 presidents, all gone on Independence Day. You could not write it more neatly. John Quincy Adams did not retire quietly. Years after the White House, he collapsed from a stroke on the floor of the House of Representatives. Carried into a room at the Capitol, he said, "This is the last of Earth. I am content." Andrew Jackson survived duels, war, and an attempted assassination, but heart failure and chronic illness finally caught him. He told his grieving family, "Do not cry. Be good children, and we shall all meet in heaven." Martin Van Buren died years later from asthma and heart failure. His reported final words, "There is but one reliance," pointed to his faith. Then came William Henry Harrison, the president who lasted just 31 days. The famous story says he caught pneumonia after delivering a huge inaugural speech in freezing weather, but modern researchers think the better explanation may be enteric fever from contaminated water near the White House. Either way, the new president was gone before the country had settled in. The era was brutal. John Tyler died after a stroke. James K. Polk died of cholera at only 53. Zachary Taylor became violently ill after a July 4th celebration where he ate fruit and drank iced milk. People suspected murder for decades until tests on his exhumed remains found no evidence of arsenic poisoning. And Millard Fillmore's reported last review of his soup, "The nourishment is palatable." History has range. Franklin Pierce never recovered from the death of his young son in a train wreck just before his inauguration. He later died from cirrhosis. No dependable final words survive. James Buchanan died as the country he had failed to hold together descended into civil war. Then Abraham Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater. His final reported words were not a grand farewell. Mary Lincoln worried someone would see them holding hands. Lincoln quietly said, "She won't think anything of it." Andrew Johnson survived impeachment, but not 2 strokes. Ulysses S. Grant, the general who won the Civil War, died of throat cancer while rushing to complete his memoirs after a financial swindle wiped out his savings. His final recorded word was quiet and small. Water. Rutherford B. Hayes died from heart failure and reportedly said he knew he was going where his late wife Lucy was. And then, medicine itself became part of the tragedy. James Garfield was shot months into office. The bullet did not kill him at first, but doctors repeatedly searched for it with unsterilized instruments, and infection took over. After 80 agonizing days, Garfield reportedly cried, "Swain, can't you stop this pain?" Chester Arthur died of kidney disease. Grover Cleveland's last words were, "I have tried so hard to do right." Benjamin Harrison died after influenza became pneumonia. Then William McKinley was shot at a public reception. Doctors could not find the bullet in his abdomen and gangrene followed. Near the end, he said, "God's will be done, not ours." His murder helped make presidential protection a permanent Secret Service responsibility. Theodore Roosevelt had a very different encounter with death. He was shot while campaigning in 1912, saw the blood on his shirt, and gave his speech anyway, with the bullet still inside him. Years later, a blood clot killed him in his sleep. "Put out the light, James," he said. Taft died of heart disease, not in a bathtub. Woodrow Wilson, left severely disabled by a stroke, reportedly said, "I am a broken piece of machinery." Warren Harding died suddenly on a Western trip, likely from a heart attack. His wife had been reading to him when he said, "That's good. Go on. Read some more." Calvin Coolidge, famous for saying little, reportedly told a worker, "Good morning, Robert," before dying from a heart attack. Franklin Roosevelt carried America through the Depression and World War II while his health collapsed. Sitting for a portrait in 1945, he said, "I have a terrific pain in the back of my head." Then came the stroke that killed him. Harry Truman died in a coma. Eisenhower, after years of heart trouble, was ready. "I want to go. God, take me." Then came Dallas. John F. Kennedy was in an open motorcade when Nellie Connolly told him, "You can't say Dallas doesn't love you." Kennedy answered, "No, you certainly can't." Seconds later, he was shot. Lyndon Johnson died from a heart attack at his Texas ranch. Richard Nixon suffered a stroke and called out, "Help." Gerald Ford died privately at 93. His family never released his final words. Jimmy Carter changed the record. He lived to 108 pieces of the longest-lived president in American history. No final words were publicly confirmed. Ronald Reagan died after a long battle with Alzheimer's and pneumonia. George H.W. Bush's last phone call was to his son. "I love you too," he said. 40 former United States presidents have died. 8 died in office. 4 were assassinated. assassinated. The earliest were often defeated by infections and medical treatments that now seem unthinkable. Later presidents lived longer, protected by better medicine and far more security, but the last words stay with you. Washington, 'tis well. Adams, Thomas Jefferson survives. Grant Water. Kennedy, no, you certainly can't. Some sound historic, some sound devastating, some sound like anyone's last conversation. Maybe that is the point. At the end, presidents do not sound like monuments, they sound like people. Which president's final words surprised you the most?